Yeah, I said I think we could just kind of let the readers go back to this, because I think you kind of addressed them all. And I'll read through them quickly now that we've brought back to it. But myth one is doctors make decisions about drugs and treatments to give us based on scientific evidence, and we talked about that.
That's
we
a
know
myth,
that's
right?
not the case.
Yeah.
Myth two is doctors are highly trained in and skilled at diagnosis, the reasoning process to determine the underlying cause. They're not worried about stuff. They're looking at strictly at symptoms. In fact, I've had my blood work done again. My cholesterol tends to be a little bit high, usually because I end up having meat or something the night before my blood work.
But wait a second. How are your triglycerides? That's what matters.
I think they're in the more normal range, but my LDL, my total cholesterol is like in the 300s, but my HDL is like 72, which gives me a HDL to total cholesterol ratio that it's on the high end of normal, but still in the normal range. And I'm not denying that my cholesterol is high, but I've been looking at, okay, well, I know my sleep has been off and I haven't been able to lose weight. I could diet and my weight's not going anywhere. And just monitoring sleep and my stress level. I got a Garmin watch and I try and monitor all that. There are behavioral things I know I can do.
I have a suggestion for you, and that's very easy, and you might do this, but I just want to say the lipid hypothesis that cholesterol causes heart disease has not been proved, and it's looking more and more like it's starchy foods, sugary and starchy foods provoking insulin resistance, and basically elevated blood sugar. That these are the things that seem to provoke heart disease. And I have my cholesterol is like 354 or something like that. I'm so happy because it's protective. High cholesterol is protective in women over 50. My triglycerides are 30. My HDL is 102. And this comes, I eat a carnivore diet and I take some supplements to make up for the few nutrients I don't get. But with my eye, because I had, my doctor gave me an overdose of corticosteroids because I didn't have time to read. I was doing stuff for the book. I basically fell into the car and fell onto the gurney. And, she stabs your eye. And so she's expert in that. But I didn't realize that there was a huge dose of steroids, and this gave me adrenal suppression, where your immune system is basically not there. All these horrible effects. I have tachycardia and bradycardia in the same day. That's dangerously high, dangerously low heartbeats. As a person, my BP is like 99/62. I'm healthy. But so one of the things that I saw to do from the research was to get 10 minutes of the first morning light in your retinas. That helps your circadian rhythm, that helps you sleep, and it helps other processes in your body to be quite healthy. And so that's sort of like the healthy, but you get what I'm saying. And then also, you might consider whether you would be willing to low carb, a ketogenic diet, because if you want to lose weight, that's, and I write about this. I have all this in the book about how to eat a well-formed ketogenic diet, which is very important, where you are, for example, you'll need more salt. And so I put, because I eat carnivore, to maintain this salt in my body appropriately and potassium, the electrolytes, I put potassium through Mortonite salt in my water and then salt in my water. These two things. And it sounds disgusting, but you get used to it. Now I miss it if there's not salt in my water. And so, these are some of the things you can do, and never spending a day sedentary, and also doing weightlifting. This is what I talk about in the book too. Slow speed weightlifting. Just, you can do arms. And all I do one set a day, very slow speed, muscle failure. You do 5 seconds up, 5 seconds down. It's very cheap. And then the last one that you can do before you get all squirmy, and you can probably do one more where you think that is muscle failure. And what happens is you've created tiny tears in your muscles. And over the next day, they're repairing. And that's creating, healthy, quality muscle. And what's really important about this, number one, what you do for muscle, you do. It's sort of it's like a telephone thing. It gets there a little later, but and muscles and bone are metabolically active. So they actively work to reduce insulin resistance and inflammation when you're working them. And so I don't go a day without this. It's very important, these habits. I used to, in perimenopause, I sometimes got migraines. That was the only reason I could get out of my push-ups in the morning, is if I was really dying. And that's important. It's just do it. This thing of like your feelings. I wrote about this in my last book. Your feelings are not the boss of you. Are you uncomfortable? Do you not want to do that? Get down and do 20, and that's how you have to treat yourself. And it's sort of funny if you yell at yourself about these things, it makes it sort of more palatable.
Yeah, I teach exercise physiology, and it was funny, when I interviewed Dr. Lufkin late last season, I said, I probably should write a book, The Lies I Taught in Exercise Science class, because, I was raised, when I got my master's degree, and even to a certain extent still with the PhD, we were teaching, high carb, low fat diet and everything else. And it's like, oh my God, we were so wrong. And cardio. And it's like, now I'm like, you got to be lifting weights more. You got to, if you're going to eat carbs, you're eating them around your workout time. And that's
I would
the
differ
enemy.
with you on this. Stephen Finney, of Volek and Finney, two dietary researchers. He is an avid, near professional cyclist, and you can, he tested and then did the, work for him too, N of one, eating a low carb diet for potentiating exercise. And so I don't quite recall what his studies all said, but this is really important to look at because carbs, what I see is that for me, it's that I want to avoid eating things that cause me harm. And I can eat such a delicious grease log of that don't cause me harm. Carnivore is delicious. And so, eggs, I eat eggs and hamburger and salmon with a seared crust on it and everything. And it's just, that's very exciting. And to forego the things that I enjoy, French fries or whatever, I see it as a positive thing of, I'm investing in having not suffering and good health in older age. And then to not be too ascetic, because you don't want to binge. When I go to a party, I'm like a scientist, trying to assess them. I like with a microscope. It's really just my eyes, but I get a chocolate chip cook expert of experts. And so it's like, were these made by a vegan with that horrible stuff that's not, butter and eggs and everything? Or are they made with like the real stuff? And then I'm assessing, is the white chocolate chip one? It's this thing. And so then I'll eat, I mean to eat one and I'll eat three because I'm a hedonistic kid when I admit that. But so this is how I, manage. I'm mostly not eating any sugar or flour, and then I eat at home. So I'm eating butter and ghee. And these are the healthiest forms of fat that you can eat. Ghee has a high, whatever it's called, has a high smoke point. So you can sear meat and fish with it without it burning like butter. And it's just delicious. And then I eat, because I'm eating carnivore, I'm not eating carbs. What I do is I eat butter off the stick. Oh. It's delicious. I love it. And I'm not getting fat from this because I'm not having the carbs, and my, insulin's not, seesawing all over the place. And you really don't want to have that. Basically what happens is a broken blood sugar response later in life, where there's so much back and forth, insulin working, to bring down the blood sugar, and it eventually, in many people, that breaks. And then you're left with the inflammation, which is low-grade inflammation, there's basically like a low-grade fire in you all the time. And so what happens is when your immune system is needed, hey, send out the warriors, the little white blood cell to like deal with this injury here. They're tired, they're burnt out. And so that's a really vital thing to not have happen, because you need that. As you get older, I'm 61, you see that you're much less robust. I got a bruise on my foot. I wrote about this, I think, in the book, unless I cut it. I had this bruised toe. It was black once. An old me, bruise. Okay. Oh, it's better tomorrow. And this is the sort of thing that you see that's scary. And then I also look at, it's tragic. The old people, like where I go get my eye treatment from my eye surgeon for this, it's a genetic disease called Fuchs dystrophy. Really obese. And you can see these people, tremendous suffering throughout their day. And that's pretty good incentive. I just wish that they hadn't been sold the bill of goods with the standard American diet with government commission and these two fraudsters. What's his name? Hegstead and then Fred Stair at Harvard, who scammed the American public on the take from Big Sugar, saying that, sugar's fine. It's those, it's meat and all the things that are actually healthy for us, that are bad for us. And so they turned the American public unhealthy for, it's disgusting.
Yeah, I think we agree on the information that the medical community has given us over the years. And I spend a lot of time in class. I teach a pathophysiology and exercise class, and we really deal with this is what the medical community says, but this is what we can be doing. And it's pretty simple. I mean, you really bring it down to eat a healthy diet, exercise, get good sleep, maintain a healthy body composition, don't smoke, and have healthy social connections. And
oh, absolutely. That's so important. And I encourage people also, when you're feeling terrible, there are times people want to isolate, but I find, and it is a thing for people, that social connection is so part of our evolutionary history and such a healing thing. Call somebody. And I mean, I would make myself, I got depressed during COVID in maybe April of whatever, 20. I couldn't even dial the phone, but I made myself, found my friend Catherine, and she always makes me feel better. And she did. And then also to move when you're feeling down, because one of my books is on embodied cognition. It's a book with they all have F words, except for this one, on F wordology. And what that is, it's how the mind is bigger than the brain, and that emotions and actions are actually bidirectional. So you can change your emotions with your actions, and your actions change your emotions. And so what I made myself do, because our brain's kind of, miraculous and marvelous, but stupid, is that I realized the brain thinks that, being all head up from exercise is like being all head up because you're excited. And there's social science in this area that's very interesting. And so I made myself get on this exercise bike. I Wicked Witch of the West. I didn't want to do it, but it's like, I actually talked to myself, are you paralyzed? No. And get the hell on the bike, and that helps. And it's just, it's the sort of stuff that you need to sort of parent yourself on, And the one thing I wanted to mention about exercise, this is another terrible thing about these medical, institutions. It's the institutions, the doctors, it's both medical education and the institutions that are at fault. I mean, I get angry at this because, I think I would read the science, but you can't make those determinations and people get to have lives. But here's the thing. They recommend at Kaiser all over the place to eat this low-fat diet, which is not satiating, not healthy, doesn't have adequate nutrients. And then, I love this, to walk for osteoporosis. Okay, that's worthless because, you're not putting enough weight on your bones to tell them, hey, yoo-hoo, we're going to be needing you. Better bulk up bones and muscles. And especially for elderly people, it's called sarcopenia, muscle wasting. You don't want that. All of this is connected with the insulin resistance and the whole body just going to pot. And, it takes very little to, in terms of I can be thin, and not everybody, is metabolically the same, but I can eat. I don't count a calorie ever. I eat when I'm hungry, and I can do relatively minimal exercise, doing a slow speed weight training. And then I do a bit of cardio because I sit in a chair all day and I need to move. So I run, but I run in front of the TV, and then I run outside, to get the circadian rhythm, 10 minutes. I'm in California, so it's, so just 10 minutes is okay. But for overcast areas might have to do 15. That's very important. And these things are just sort of minor, and you can be, the benefits from dividends from just doing these things, being attentive to these areas. But yet, doctors, they're telling patients with diabetes, here, have pudding. All these, they feed diabetics at the hospital. This mind-blowing, insane. This woman's mother, diabetes, terrible diabetes. She's on Twitter, which is my social world right now. They fed her more sugar for breakfast than I eat in a year. It's great, pancakes and dessert and all this stuff. And she's hospitalized with some kind of horrible attack. It's mind-blowing, all of this.